As interesting as that could be, but I don't know. It was interesting, but I don't think it quite worked. The other thing was that you know, this film had a lot of Chekhov's guns. For those of you who don't know, a Chekhov's gun is a thing in writing, like, or when you're writing a play or a screenplay. If there's a gun hanging on the wall in the first act of your movie or your play, then if it's not used in the second or third acts, at some point, then the gun doesn't need to be there. So while technically this film doesn't have Chekhov's guns, because a Chekhov's gun would be referring to the idea of the gun not being used, I think, I don't know, someone could call me out on that if they knew anything about it. In this, you know, when me and my girlfriend characters are, oh look, there was a close up on the turkey carver, you know, they're going to use the turkey carver later, and they do, you know. So yeah. You know, I can imagine a lot of people saying, oh, it was predictable. Well, of course it was predictable. Fuck's sake, what were you expecting? My problem was, it actually came up with it had a very interesting opening. And it didn't follow up on it. I was kind of disappointed with that. They open with this girl wandering through the woods. She looks like she's been through the shit, as it were, and then a couple of hillbilly guys come along, shove a sack. Thank you. Shove a sack, easy for me to say, over her head, and knock her out, and then she ends up tied to this pole down in the basement of the lodge that there would be, and there's an old woman there with a few like hillbilly cult people there, and there's dead cats hanging from the ceiling, which is very Evil Dead-esque. There's there's dead cats hanging from the ceiling, and there's this old woman who's, you know, talking about how only that, you know, what the book has done, only the book can undo, and then there's a guy there who's the girl's father, and I won't spoil it too much, but it was very interesting. The opening was quite cool and interesting, you know, but they kind of didn't follow up on that. I would have thought that one of the best things you can do, I mean, one of the best you can do, the way you do a remake, is that you remain true to the spirit of the original, but at the same time come up with some new stuff to see. This is the problem that the Total Recall remake had. The Total Recall remake isn't as bad as people say it is, but it's the same movie. That's the problem. It's the same movie. You know, I mean, here's a Total Recall remake review for you. Same movie, basically. They use the same plot points. I mean, there's different things, but structure and sort of plot point wise, it's the same movie. It just doesn't have the wit, the violence, the charm the original, you know, had. Doesn't have the same visuals. Doesn't have the same joy. Kind of like, you know, the original Evil Dead doesn't have that same kind of joy, you know, that it has with itself. That same kind of sense of fun, you know. You know, that was my problem with the Total Recall remake. And this, they don't go exactly the same route as. Oh, threw up in my mouth a little bit there. I forgot what I was going to say. You know, they didn't go exactly the same plot route, you know. But you know, they had that idea at the start. I thought, why don't you follow up on that later? That would be really interesting, but they don't. You know. Also, the dog corpse looked terrible. Whoever did the special effects for this film was really good at gore effects, but wasn't very good at dead animals. yeah, I think I was supposed to feel sorry for the dog as well, and didn't spend a whole lot of time with the dog. Didn't really. Dog's name was Grandpa for some reason. That was weird. I would say it's. I guess it's fun enough. It's good to see a balls to the wall sort of gory horror film out nowadays. Because studios like to slap a PG-13 rating, as the Americans would have it, on their films, whether it be horror, action, or whatever, just to make sure that more people can get in the cinema. But the weird thing is, action films and horror films nowadays don't seem to have a whole lot of violence. They all seem to be very toned down and, lacking in blood and gore and whatever. Whereas a lot of comedy films nowadays are very much R-rated. It's weird. It kind of counteracts that whole point. Oh, they're trying to keep the rating low so that more people can get into the cinema. Which is a little different over in America anyway, because if it's an R rating, then that means anyone below the age of 17 must be accompanied by an adult. So you can actually take kids into R-rated films. You just have to be with it. You just have to be older than 17 and be with them to supervise them. Yeah, it's a bit weird, the whole thing. That I would say check it out. I mean, if nothing else, like I said, it's really well shot. It's got a decent final act. It's actually the part that's probably the scariest part, because I don't know. Whatever. I'd say it's okay. Could have been a lot better. Could have been far worse. Oh yes, this could have been far worse than what it was. But I would say check it out. Just to. That's about it, really. I say just try to check it out, and just check it out. And if you don't like it, then I totally understand. I'm close to being a bit about it myself, but it's not bad. Just, it tries to, like I said, tries to throw in a bit more hope towards the end, which I don't think is. It's not very Evil Dead. Evil Dead always took a lot of joy in fucking over its characters, particularly Ash. It took a lot of joy in that. I mean, if you watch the original ending of Evil Dead 3: Army of Darkness, then you know that Sam Raimi liked to do that, and those films were like that, But this film didn't have that same thing about it. It didn't have that same joy and black humour that the old ones had. So in a sense, it's not entirely Evil Dead, but it has its moments. It's okay. That's all I can say about it anyways. Well, I'll see you soon.